Everybody, thanks for listening to Fire Breathing Rob. If you're listening to us for the first time, please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Please hit the bell. Tell your friends, your family members on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on. I really appreciate it. Dr. Ron Kaiser on here. He is a man of many talents. We're going to be talking about many different things. Dr. Ron Kaiser, he does have a podcast and a book out called Rejuvenaging, and definitely check that out. The podcast, obviously, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those places have it. And then the book, obviously, you can check in. Well, we hope you go to your local bookstore, but if your local bookstore for some reason can't get it, definitely check it out on Amazon.com. Dr. Ron Kaiser, thanks so much for coming on. Looking forward to our chat today.
Well, thanks for having me, Rob. I've been a fan of your show, so it's a thrill for me to be on it.
Can you tell the viewers a little bit about you first before we even start going into the thick and thin of this conversation?
Sure. Well, I'm a positive health psychologist, and for many, many years, my concentration has been in the field of headache. I really liked working with headache patients because, unlike, say, some of the types of medical patients, headache patients can get better. You know, it's a neurochemical disorder. If we can get things back into balance, they can get better. So it was a natural fit for my positive psychology. And then as time went on, as happens to so many people, I got older. And one of the things that really concerned me is the fact that a lot of my peers were just not aging as well as they could. In essence, they weren't planning to get older. They knew it would happen, but they didn't take the proper preventive measures to ensure really good health and so on. So I've concentrated a big part of my practice on helping people to become the best versions of themselves in the second half century of life, which encompasses millennials and others who will be dealing with that. And so that's been my real focus, how to help people change behaviors so that they can become healthier physically, cognitively, social connected wise, and so on.
A lot of people my age, in their 20s and 30s, are very lonesome right now. So what advice would you give to the young people? And then we'll talk about the older people too.
Sure. Well, I think one of the big problems, and first of all, I do want to say I've been happily married for 51 years, but probably no time have I been happier than knowing that I don't have to deal with meeting other people in a dating situation the past couple of years. But one of the problems is, and I think this is true with medicine, with psychology and so on, you're always willing to seek help when you're in crisis, when you've got disease, when you're feeling suicidal. That's the time to do it. People are less likely to do prevention. And I think one of the things that hopefully will be a lesson to us is the fact that, if you don't have a strong support system and a system of friendships and so on, you're in a lot rougher place. So that the notion that you're suddenly sort of confined is much more difficult if you have some outlets, people that you can call, people that you can take walks with, things of this nature. So I do think that it's very important for millennials and others to think preventively. I'd say this, I think the same thing with social relationships as applies to, say, exercise. You're doing exercise not only because some of us regard it as fun. I know not everybody does, but some of us do, but also because you're investing in your body so that the chances of it deteriorating over time is reduced. I think the same thing with respect to friendships. I know that there are a lot of people who are so tied up in their work or in the notion that, I've got to be able to afford things, so I'm gonna work extra hard. not worry too much about meeting people. I know I can always get around to it. I think that it becomes very important to structure in time for building friendships, maintaining friendships, and being a bit concerned about what kind of a guy or gal you are, that, we're interdependent. And there are a lot of people I know who regret the fact that they don't have people that they can deal with because they never built those things, or they didn't have to, or their friendships were at work and suddenly their job got changed so that they're not really interacting with others. So I think prevention is really the key thing in loneliness, just as it is with other aspects of health.
I do want to dive into the podcast. Can you talk about the podcast in general and how it came about?
Sure. Well, it's called Rejuvenaging with Dr. Ron Kaiser, so it's not too original a name. But my goal was to, since I did have an audience from the book, as well as I do some online courses, and I on Facebook Live from time to time, and have a mailing list there. So I do have a following that really I felt, you can't keep talking to yourself all the time. I mean, I guess you can, but it probably isn't overly productive. And I'd just like listening to Fox News or MSNBC all the time. You hear one particular point of view. So I organized it around the concept of leading your life with enthusiasm, because the subtitle of my book, it's Rejuvenaging, the Art and Science of Growing Older with Enthusiasm. And so I try to bring on people who lead their lives with enthusiasm and can help others in various ways. I've had people who are coaches of various types. I've had other authors. I've had people who are into meditation. I've had people who work in the financial planning area, trying to give a broad perspective about how you can live your life with enthusiasm, plan for the future. Again, we've got maybe half the people are in the senior ranges, but I'm proud of the fact that there are a lot of people who believe in my concept of prevention and, trying to, I sometimes use the term grow old while you're young. In other words, to begin to plan for the fact that you want to be the healthiest, best version of yourself. And so that's what we try to do is bring those kinds of guests on. Probably don't have as illustrious a group of guests that you have over time, but I'm still fairly young on the podcast. Not young personally, but young in the podcast world.
Well, I've listened to the podcast and they are really well done. I think people should listen to that again on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts in general. Check it out. Again, Rejuvenaging. And also that is the book too. So it's nice and easy to remember. So again, Dr. Ron Kaiser. Let's move into the audience questions. There's a lot of elderly people that do get scammed by people online dating, send this money and you want a car. Most people, I think if you're somewhat of intelligence, you wouldn't fall for that. And I'm not saying the people that fall for that stuff are dumb. There's a lot to do with loneliness in this.
Absolutely.
That they want to talk to these people, whether it's online as a pen pal, maybe they don't have any family left or a lot of friends, or they're homebound in general. So they find these people are mentally sick that do this to these elderly people and people in general. But they end up, screwing these people's lives up. And some of them even commit suicide because they're in the hole for money and they just burn it. So, what would you say to some of these people, whether they're elderly or even some of the young people that fall for this because they are lonely and they end up talking to these scam artists that are stealing them, left and right out of a lot of money?
Yeah, there is. I mean, first of all, it's a great question. And I'm glad you tied it in with loneliness, because this really is probably the central component. I mean, the issue of getting rich quick is probably one of the components, but the loneliness, people tend to be attracted to these scams because the scammer generally is very complimentary to the person. That in the pitch, it's, you're this special kind of person, you've got this expertise the world, needs, and so on. And, I can help you to achieve these lifelong dreams. Do you want to continue, even with younger people, do you want to continue slaving away for another boss the rest of your life or whatever? I mean, I imagine you, just as I get these solicitations too, based on, if you
Right.
take this course for thousands of dollars from somebody you never heard of, that it's going to change your life in various
Well,
ways.
now, Doc, not to interrupt you, but now they have text messages, Amazon gift cards,
Yeah,
and all this other razzle dazzle that they spew on you, emails, text messages, calls.
sure.
They just don't give up.
Yeah.
And, it's crazy, but go ahead.
Yeah. So they do up the ante, that if you don't respond the first time, or if you respond but don't follow through, then they've got you on the list, and then they will keep going. And for some people, this winds up being part of their social life. I mean, here is somebody who is this important person, and they always, talk about how, they've made millions or whatever it may be, that they're this important person, and they're going to take the time to talk to me. They're going to take the time to take me under their wing. And the more lonely you are, the more vulnerable you are to that kind of an appeal. So again, I think the loneliness and the desire to get rich are probably the two major appeals. Now, I think it's very important, there are, just like the internet can be misused, it can be a real help in looking at these things. There are websites like Snopes that can discuss scams, or, sometimes, for example, when I get a phone call that, with a message about this, and they leave a number, you can actually Google that phone number, and you will also often find that there are a few dozen complaints about what that scammer did. So, I mean, I would never just respond. I mean, it's, it's kind of like,
Yeah.
if somebody offers you a product or something like that, and you have to sign, now you always got to check this stuff out. I know that there is, again, if you're lonely, the very notion that, hey, if I don't respond right now, I'm going to lose out on something terrific, because this guy really won't call me after today. The reality is, check that stuff out, ask other people. Just, there's almost nothing, if they found you without any relationship, don't assume they're going to drop you if you don't respond. So check it out.
It really is predatory what they're doing to these people. But anyways, we'll move forward with the last few questions. I do want to get this in. You did talk about those 7 keys to rejuvenating. Can you talk about that on the show here?
Sure. Well, first of all, we have research that demonstrates that if you can always keep moving forward in certain main areas, that's really health producing. So the main areas are health and fitness, which I break up into healthy eating, as well as what I call owning your body, which is things like exercise, sleep, meditation, so on. One of the things that the older folks among us worry about particularly is intellectual functioning, whether you're going to lose your mind as you get older. And the other is the one we've talked about, social connectedness. So my 7 keys is, I think it's first starts with the mindset. You have to be kind of positive, oriented toward the fact that you have some ability to control how you're going to evolve as a person, as opposed to kind of assuming that the course of events control you. So if you have the good positive mindset, that's a start. Then again, I like the notion of addressing the intellectual capacity first, because again, so many people worry about thinking that they don't have the ability to control what happens to them, and they're going to indefinitely get Alzheimer's or some form of dementia. There's a lot we can do. It can't guarantee it, but there's a lot we can do to help offset it. So that's a second key. Third one would be healthy eating. Fourth one would be owning your body, or the exercise kind of thing. Fifth is social connectedness. Sixth is doing good for other people. And this is a great thing to be involved in if somebody has issues with loneliness. If you can get involved with a charity or volunteer to help others, where you don't have to really, it's not like meeting somebody in a bar or something like that. There is a structure there for it. What we found is people who do the helping actually wind up feeling better in many cases than the people they're helping. And then the seventh is kind of appreciating the good that surrounds us. My friend and a much more prolific author than I am, Rick Hansen, who is in California, has coined a term called taking in the good, which in essence says, number one, that if you're in a good situation, if you're enjoying the day, really embed that in you. But also to be able to take in the good means not necessarily looking for dramatic things, but if I am going to an appointment and I'm driving there and it's 10 miles away and I get there on time, that's a pretty good thing. If no cars hit me on the way there, that's a pretty good thing. Appreciate some of that good stuff that happens on a regular basis. The fact that I can, that we were able to spend Thanksgiving with the fact my son and daughter-in-law includes us in our grandchildren's lives and so on. That's good stuff.
Why do you feel like people don't appreciate the little things, Doc?
Well, I think it's one of the things is, if somebody gets there are a lot of people, if they get a B or a C, they may as well have gotten an A, gotten a fail in school, because
Right.
if it isn't an A, then it's a fail. I
Yep.
think that there's a lot of people who equate something good happening that isn't dramatically good or doesn't have a big payoff as
Sure.
being mediocre. So why should I appreciate mediocre? Why? I mean, that's,
Yeah.
that's just mediocre. And the reality is that there's a lot of really good stuff that happens that isn't traumatic.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a lot to do with societal issues too, with the fast-paced world now, internet, social media, everybody, we joke about this. I've joked about this on other podcasts. Everybody's so focused to get that like on Facebook or the like on Instagram, and they got to get 1 million likes, all this stuff. I think it's really hurting our mind too, these social media things, because it leads. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because if you orient what your message is to get the likes, then you forget about the message, which, and the reality is that a lot of people might like what you've posted, but they don't like with a big L, because they're just not into that, or they're moving on to the next thing. So, the reality is, if you're saying, if it has merit, then say it. It's kind of like, I wrote the book not knowing if it would sell or anything, but I thought it had merit. So, I did it.
All I'm saying, Doc, is I'm 32 years old. I remember not having a cell phone I survived. We all survived. You survived. We all survived. I survived without Facebook. I survived without Instagram. I survived without the internet, period. It's an asset at times, as you stated, but it's also a detriment to society. And Dr. Ron Kaiser here on Fire Breathing Rob. Let's end with this. Doc, where can people find more about you on the web? Also, as we stated, you can get it on the podcast with Apple Podcasts. The book is in bookstores, Rejuvenaging. I definitely looked that up for the podcast and the book. But any other places where people can find you on the web or any other places in general?
Yeah, yes, I have a website called the Mental Health Gym. And that also is kind of the name of my pages on Facebook and Instagram. I think on Twitter it's at Mental Health Gym, and it's under my name. It's Ron Kaiser, PhD, on LinkedIn. So I'm in a lot of places. I probably should do a better job of getting material on there as often as I should. But maybe if I cared a little more about the likes, I would do that. So have to work on that. But the Mental Health Gym is probably the most direct place to reach me. And you can certainly, I am pretty good about responding to messages to ron.kaiser@thementalhealthgym.com.
Again, mentalhealthgym.com. Definitely check it out. And then, like we said, the podcast and also the book, Rejuvenaging. Dr. Ron Kaiser, let's do this again. This was fun.
It was really a joy talking with you, and always am pleased to be back because, you bring out the best in your guests.